Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance. And this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Jessica, and here's her story. Hello, Ollie. Holy crap, I'm finally out of a living hell. I met my husband through a girlfriend, and most times that is a disaster. Because most girlfriends don't want to see you end up with a guy better than what they have. That's the truth. Women's first instinct is to sabotage other women by and large. Okay? And I know very few people that have successful marriages where it was introduced, the man was introduced through a friend, a female friend of the woman. They never work out. They were dating at the time, only a month or so. I thought, yeah, it's even worse. Because because if he's going to cheat on her, why would you want him? And if she doesn't want him, why do you want him? Like, why would you? Hold on. I thought he was an okay guy, and I hung out with them a few times. My friend went overseas on a trip, and supposedly her boyfriend liked me, and she saw that he liked me too, to the point where when she got overseas, she sent me an email saying, if anything happens between you guys, you have my blessing. So she's basically saying, you're a hoe, and you can have I don't want him anyway, you can have him. You think you thought that was a solid basis for a relationship? I don't know. Well, you didn't. You said you ended up marrying him, so I was floored and confused. Now I wonder if she set me up. Yeah. Why is she gonna? It's like, I don't want him. See, that's passive aggressive, like, and that's what a woman always in the back of their mind. Like, why would you want your friend's boyfriend that didn't work out? Now, like, look, if you legitimately meet on your own and then you just happen to date, that's one thing. But like this, first of all, he's telling you he's willing to cheat. She thinks you're a friggin' hoe anyway, because if anything happens, you have my blessing, while she's overseas. Like, she's basically like, my life is so good, if you want him, you want my castaway. He's not good enough for me and my vagina, but he's good enough for yours. But since she said something, it tweaked something in my head. It made me wonder. He came by my work a lot while she was gone, and something did blossom between us. I will say that I used to have seriously low self-esteem, so when a guy paid this attention to me, it felt good. He went to church too and said he was Christian, and I was 25 at the time and wanted to settle down. I see now that I didn't think anyone else would want me. Now I believe he was looking for a person he could twist into his little victim slave, and maybe I seem to be a more compliant choice than my friend at the time. Probably. I mean, he's a predator, but what's Christian about how he's behaving? I mean, if he's just going to bounce from your friend to you, obviously it's based on self-esteem and you thinking your only value is in your vagina at the time. Meanwhile, you're accepting a guy, okay, before anything happens. You said you said he had feelings for you, and she calls you, and she's basically saying, well, he's not good enough for my vagina, but he's good enough for yours. And I know you're thirsty and would fuck him anyway. That's basically what she basically called you, a whore, and said he's not good enough for me anyway, and he's trash, and that's what. And because your self-esteem is so low at the time, you accepted that. Women generally don't want to see their other female friends do better than them. They don't. They don't. They don't. I'd say it's like a 80 to 90% fall in that category of women that are so competitive that with their friends and they just sabotage each other. And this is another example. And it's an example of two women, yourself included, who are putting all of their value in their vaginas. I don't remember if it was while we were dating or engaged. We dated 6 months and then he popped the question. I think it was after we were engaged that he shared two things with me in confidence. One was when he was a young teen, a girl cousin of his would sneak into his family's house, dress him up like a girl, and have sex with him. I don't know if it was intercourse or oral or everything, but he explained to me that he likes wearing women's clothes during sex. I never had exposure to this kind of kink, and at the time I felt humbled that he would share something so sensitive with me. Because sex is love with you. Because you put all your value, you're putting all your value in your vagina. You know, you don't see he has a dysfunction with sex. And he uses sex as a weapon, and you're seeing it as love. Okay? Because sex is used in so many different ways in the narcissism and through with the sociopath, in that, you know, you're using sex as a way of valuing yourself and your self-esteem. Sex with him in reality is a dysfunction, but he also uses it as a weapon. And you see it as love and value. And because he's sharing this sexual thing with you, and because you value sex as worth and love, you're thinking he's showing you love. I know now that narcs share stories like this in the beginning, possibly lies, in order to gain sympathy and create a sense of feeling that they're bonding with you. Right, but why? How does he know that he can bond with you through sex? Because you're open to accepting your friend's vaginal castaway, basically. He's not good enough for my vagina, but he's good enough for yours. That's why. It should have been a red flag to get the hell out, but I was codependent and wanted to save him. You can't save him. You wanted him to love you. You wanted him to give you value through your vagina, because you didn't understand what love was. Also, in the same conversation, he shared with me that when he was Also in the same conversation, he shared with me that when he was a few years older, he had exposed his penis to a woman in public and got caught and had to go to court. He didn't say this, but I'm guessing he went to jail for it too. I have yet to do a background check on him. Again, I didn't see it as a red flag. It should have been. I saw it as being vulnerable and sharing something embarrassing, and I wanted to show him what kind of loving Christian girl I was, and I accept his past with grace and love. What about him is Christian whatsoever? What? That's what I'm telling you. These Christians, these churches, they're just con artists. They're just using the religion as part of their con. How you don't see him whipping it, like him being arrested for basically pulling his dick out, like if you can't see these red flags, I mean, that just shows how little you valued yourself, that you're just willing to suspend disbelief. because he showed you a little bit of attention and you think that's your only value. You said you didn't think you could do much better, or anyone else. I felt closer to him after he shared, when I should have seen it as a sign to get out. Right, you see how you feel closer when he shares something sexual, because sexual is worth and is love, because that's where all your value is. It's not in you. I've seen this a million times on this channel. I was also too nice to do something as rude as walk the hell out of there and not look back. Fast forward a few years after our wedding, who wore the dress at the wedding? Honestly. If you knew all that beforehand, you're swallowing a lot before you even get married. Fast forward a few years after our wedding, I finally got up the courage to tell him what I liked in bed. Romance, slow and passionate. He actually called me vanilla and said that way of sex was boring and he refused to do it that way. Now I think, who the hell says that to their wife that they supposedly love? I was crushed. I felt like I was the one who was a freak. You're right, because this is what they do. They use their sexual dysfunction as a weapon where, that's normal. And anything outside of their dysfunction becomes dysfunction, becomes the abnormal. That's how it works. That's how it all... And then when he says this and you push back, it's like, I told you all this. I told you all this before we got married, and now you're gonna change, and now like, you know how that works. I'm sure you've heard it. I felt like I was the one who was the freak, but here was this guy who liked me to put makeup on him, dress him up in silk panties and pantyhose, and even had me use a strap on him once. Man, is this getting demonetized. I could throw up. It was sexual abuse by coercion, because here I was, a wife who wanted to be intimate with her husband, and he was pretty much saying, it's my way or nothing. And due to my desire to be intimate with him, I gave in. It never made me feel close to him. The worst thing was when he dressed up like a woman. Was when he dressed up like a woman, makeup and all. He looked like his mom, and she ain't a pretty woman. You got a great voice, Ollie, but it isn't becoming on a woman. His mom sounds like you. One time she called our store and thought I was a guy, and I thought it was a guy and called her sir. She must have smoked a lot of cigarettes. That's a lot of cigarettes. That's why he does it, though. If he looks like his mother, he's punishing his mother. He's punishing his mother that way. Because he thinks his mother's a dirty whore. So what he does is dress up like her and be a dirty whore. Mind you, this is all because you decided to accept somebody else's, a friend's castaway. It's not good enough for my pussy, but he's good enough for yours. That's why, because that's where you saw your value and who wanted to sleep with you. As the marriage progressed, so did his sexual proclivities. By the way, he never once gave me an orgasm due to the fact he never took the time to explore my body to see how he could please me or learn me and my buttons. I was a glorified sex toy to be used and discarded over and over again. All this time I felt my heart ripping in two. I wanted to be intimate with my husband, and at the same time I did not. Being with him left me feeling dirty, used, and ashamed, alone. Many times I would roll over and cry, and he'd fall asleep on the other side of the bed. When I got lingerie and did my hair and makeup, he didn't respond. He wanted to be the girl, dressing up and all that stuff. I was in direct competition with my husband. What the hell? Yeah, what the hell, man? What the hell? Once I brought up the verse in Deuteronomy that talks about it being an abomination to God for a man to wear women's clothing. He explained it away and got mad at me for crying. His anger surfaced soon after we were engaged and quickly got worse once we were married. One of the first times he went rageaholic was in the car at another driver. It was so violent that I started to fall asleep. I felt drugged. I grew up with an angry dad, and it was like I was transported back into that place, and the only way my body knew how to escape, protect myself, was to go to sleep. He'd punch things, throw things. In the beginning, he threatened suicide, but I got pissed and clearly saw the manipulation, and that was due to him sharing with me about his BPD mom. She's a waif mother of the victim. He would try to talk to her and tell her why and what she was doing that was pissing him off, and that she'd take the whole bottle of pills and try to off herself. Right. I told you he hates his mother. He dresses up like her, to look like her, to be treated like the whore he feels she is. That's how he punishes her. That's how he punishes her. What a joke. He was trying to use her own games on me. I saw right through it, but he had other games I had no idea about. He used his rage to scare me into doing the things he wanted to do. He used rage and pouting to get me to stop seeing my friends and family. He used rage to brainwash me into being scared to go to the bathroom or freaking yawn. When we were at work together, he'd be raging out, and I'd try to find any and every solution to solve the problem he was so upset about. Nothing worked. And he'd be raging out about how we weren't getting any work done, but his tantrum would last 1 to 2 hours. It made me insane. You're flipping out about wasting time and taking time away from us working on our store, but here you are bitching and moaning about it, and wait for it, wasting time. Because that's how his mother acts. And like you said, this is all about his mother. It's about him punishing his mother, because he's just as much a borderline as she is. This is what borderline mothers produce out of sonhood. Sexually suspect, in the closet, down low, sexually dysfunctional men. This is what you get. This is what you get. And now he has to punish her by dressing up, and being treated like the fucking dirty whore she is. When I was tired after working a 12-hour day or weeks without a day off, he'd all of a sudden start insulting my family out of the blue, saying they were all lazy, which was a passive-aggressive way of telling me I was lazy. He just didn't have the balls to say it to my face. And he'd go on and on about how nobody worked as hard as he did. We'd work crazy hours, and it was rare for me not to be there with him because I was trying to earn his love and appreciation by showing I could keep up with his pace. But the more I worked, the more he pushed and expected of me, and he'd make comments all the time saying, I'm always doing the work alone. What the hell, am I invisible? But him saying this all the time made me believe it was true. I had to start writing lists of all the things I did to remind myself that I did plenty and to break the gaslighting spell he had on me. He did this a lot, and the reason he's able to gaslight you, is because all your value was in your vagina. That's why you put no value in yourself. So any insult, when you think like that, you take every insult as 100%. As 100, you don't know why, because you never stopped and to put value in your own life, in yourself, to make yourself realize you have value in beyond who wants to sleep with you or who wanted to sleep with you. You took somebody else's castaway. Someone who said, basically called you a whore. Basically called you a whore and said, he's not good enough for me anyway, but he's good enough for you. So if somebody else's castaway can treat you like that, I mean, what does that tell you? You don't want to be rejected by somebody that your friend didn't even want. This is a castaway. That's how low you're already setting the bar for yourself, being with this guy. It's no wonder you accepted the dress, the indecent exposure. I mean, come on. I mean, you're starting at less than zero. He did this a lot. It's like, why else would he be upset if there wasn't some legitimacy to his claims and rage? He looked at the full store and said to my face, the store is empty. We have no inventory. What? His reality was so warped, and when life would throw us normal bumps, he'd react like it was the end of the world. I was living in constant stress and anxiety. If I wasn't stressed and anxious about him flipping out, I was stressed and anxious about the next time he'd be flipping out. It wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when. 1 minute he'd get mad about something specific, and the next time he wouldn't. None of it made sense. I was always so confused because he's a borderline. The times we fought, he would do this thing that I see now as a test. He'd be flipping out, and I'd be running around trying to calm him down or make it better, solve whatever problem there was, and every suggestion I made, he would say it was stupid as fuck, even if I knew it was a legitimate solution. I get so tired from the circular arguing and the word salad and the straw man dance, and he would see how tired and worn down I was. Then he would do one of two things. One, he would see how tired I was and tell me to leave, all angry like. He'd say, take the rest of the day off, take tomorrow, take the whole fucking week off, I don't care. I can do all of this myself and actually get it done 4 times faster than if you were here. You just slow me down, and you should leave after that. And be like, fine, fuck you. Let him do it. Let him. He wants to be the martyr. Let him. 2, he would see how tired I was and act all kind and tell me I could go home if I wanted to, and he would stay and finish all the work himself. Sometimes I would be riddled with guilt and stay and work myself to death. If I ever decided to leave, in whichever way he would use above 1 and 2, he would get pissed off that I was abandoning him, and more times than not, when I had turned my back on him to walk to the door, he'd loudly break something or throw something at the wall near me, and it would scare me so bad I would duck. A few times I flew into a rage because I saw he was trying to scare me. This made me constantly fear one day he'd go too far and hit me. I see now he was playing games. He wanted to see how bad I wanted his approval and love. He wanted to see if I would forego my own self, my own needs, my own rest, my own sanity in order to please him by staying to work. He wanted to see how much I loved him and if I loved him more than I loved myself. He wanted to exercise his power over me, and when I didn't play, he got pissed and would terrorize me. He'd make me pay either way. I would go home and sleep, but he would come in and slam the door and bang things around. After just a few years, I couldn't sleep well. It was like my body wouldn't let me go into a deep sleep because my subconscious knew I wasn't safe and needed to be somewhat on guard in case I needed to fight or run. Jesus, my dad just slammed the door downstairs, and there went the adrenaline dumping into my bloodstream. I could tell you how scary that sensation is. I literally jump at loud noises all the time, even being at home in my parents' house, even in a safe place. Well, that tells me you're not in a safe place, Jessica. Because my question is, why do you devalue yourself so much in the first place? And I guarantee you it has to do with the house you're in right now. When he's pissed at other people, he'd send me to take care of them. When I tried to get him to do it, he'd rehash this story, probably a lie, about how he almost beat up a kid in middle school to the point he almost killed him. He was already 6 foot in 8th grade. He'd be very descriptive about what he wanted to do to people, talked about killing them a lot. He was a racist. Anytime you go into explaining what he'd do to someone, he'd be a creative visual person. I'd picture it on the movie screen in my mind, which seemed to solidify the terror. It was like I'd see it actually happen, like a waking nightmare in my head. I didn't want people to see his rage. I didn't want anyone getting hurt, and I didn't want anyone to see this side of him, so I did his bidding, and I did it with kindness mostly, and he didn't like that either. He'd get mad at me for not yelling at people or taking care of it the way he would. I couldn't win. Also, one minute he'd be yelling at me in the back room, saying horrible things about people, me or my family, and 10 seconds later he'd open our store with a smile on his face, all charming. I started getting upset because it seemed like he'd saved the best for himself, the best of himself for other people. Someone once told me it was because he felt so comfortable around me he didn't mind showing his angry side to me. I believed that lie. It was calculated. He knew what he was doing. How else could he switch from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in a matter of seconds? It takes conscious thought. He'd constantly spend money we didn't have, which always left me stressed and scared. He didn't care. I'd tell him and he'd do it anyway. I was so scared that I couldn't check the mail or even our online banking. I would tell him how much it stressed me out, but he didn't care. He wanted to be a big kid with no responsibilities. When our account would go into the negative, he'd make me break into the bank. He'd make me go to the bank and beg them for help. And if I tried to set boundaries and refuse, he'd rage out on me and saying, "Who the hell does all the hard work around here? And you're telling me you can't do one measly simple thing like go to the fucking bank and talk to them?" He also never meant, because he doesn't like rejection. That's why. He can't even deal with rejection from like a bank. He can't deal with it. He can't be told no. He also never held me when I cried. Well, why would he? Why would you expect him to? Like, why would you expect him to act like anything human at this point? He'd look at me from across the room. He never consoled me, never told me it was okay to cry, never asked me what was wrong. My tears made him angry, because tears to him are manipulation. My counselor said that is what emotional abandonment is. Seeing someone hurt or cry is not going to them, and seeing someone hurt or cry is not going to them and being a support. I never knew that until after I left. My ex told me his mom used crying. Yeah, I told you. This is how borderlines work, because cryings are manipulation. I told you it's manipulation. My ex told me his mom used crying as a manipulation tactic, which she did. I've seen it. She'd turn on the waterworks 1 minute, and in a flash it was gone, and she'd be talking about something else. It was odd, as I keep telling you. Everything about him is linked to his mother. He sees everything as coming from his mother. That's why he needs to punish his mother. This grown man would get angry if he didn't have any clean boxers or towels. He'd get angry if there weren't any clean bowls. One time I ate our chips and he flipped out because he didn't have a salty snack. I hate to admit I ran to the store and got him chips because I felt so guilty. guilty for eating our groceries, and our money was never our money, it was his. He'd buy boats and new cars and blow thousands on buying trips without even consulting me. I realize now that is one of the big reasons I felt our money wasn't ours at all. It was his. Anytime I was sick or injured, he would get angry with me because then I couldn't work. Me having my period, he'd get pissed off. If I had a cold, he'd get pissed off. One time I broke my ankle falling down the stairs and he got pissed off. I wasn't keeping up with the house and the laundry. I remember crawling on the floor in the kitchen to clean. I was on crutches for a while and he got mad that he was going on trips by himself and guilt-shamed me into going with him. There was snow and ice on the ground, but he didn't care that it was dangerous for me with being on crutches. He didn't want to be alone. I never understood this. This man-child seemed to hate me, hate everything about me, would get so irritated with me and complain about me all the time, yet never wanted me out of his sight. What the hell is up with that? After a few years of marriage, his attitude and complaining got so bad I just wanted to kill myself so I could just get away from it. I once got one of those handheld clicker counters to document every single time he complained each day. That's how bad it was. Every day that started, I was just waiting for the complaining to start. And when it did, because it always did, dread would hit my stomach. The last 4 years of our marriage, I got up in the morning and couldn't wait to get back home to go to sleep. I was depressed and miserable. Boy, did he love terrorizing me in the car. Most of our trips were 8 to 12-hour drives each way. I'd sit there with his complaining and road rage and just wanting to open the car door, tuck and roll. I'd much rather be thrown from the car going 80 miles an hour than to sit there in his car jail cell and listen to that crap. I started bringing earbuds to plug into my phone in order to listen to music to block out his complaining. That just pissed him off. He turned up his own music or screamed louder to get even more crazy and dangerous with his driving. There were a few times during one of his car meltdowns I just couldn't take it anymore and I squeezed my eyes shut and screamed bloody murder. That shut him up. Other times I would just stare out the window with tears running down my face, hating my life, hating him, and he just ignored me. Everything I did to spoil his good time. Everything I did seemed to spoil his good time. My family spent years trying to get to know him, but he secluded us more and more with work. He never gave them a chance to get close and kept pushing me more and more not to hang out with them. He had us work on our birthdays, on our wedding anniversaries, on holidays including Christmas. When my little brother got married, he came with me, and then when his mom went into the hospital with cancer, he left. He hates his mom. I was so hurt, he didn't stay. He knew it was a huge deal that he was there with me for this family event. I found out he fished the whole time back at home. He never let me in. I'm not even sure if these people have any depth to them. I realize now I spent 15 years with a stranger, and he didn't want to get to know me either. Why? Why would you want, like, See, your problem is you're still putting all your value in your vagina, and this guy not wanting to get to know you, where you're not realizing how dysfunctional he is, that this guy is some friend who wanted to sabotage you's cast off. He's a garbage to begin with, and you're trying to get garbage to love you. Why? Because you think that's all you're worth is garbage, and that's all you think can get to love you is garbage. I was left working and living with my boss. We were not a married couple. I was his slave, and I think he was convinced I'd never leave due to me being Christian and believing I had no biblical grounds to leave him. I've now met many people who've been trapped in marriages by Christian narcissists. Yes, it's a thing. I left the marriage a while back. I could tell I was dying inside, and near the end, we stopped being intimate, to my heartbreak, but also relief. Again, why are your heart breaking? This is a guy who wants to dress up as a woman. You're sexually repulsed by him. You're trying to get garbage to love you. Some friend's cast off after her telling you, yeah, you're basically a hoe if you're going to hook up with him. But I don't care. It's not good enough for me. Why do you think like that in the first place? Why do you think like that? Why haven't you seen the light yet? Probably because you're living in the place why you think like that in the first place. Sounds like you probably have a pretty heavy-duty competition with your mother, where your mother has been sabotaging you probably your whole life. He didn't want me in that way anymore, probably ever. It left me feeling ugly, undesirable. He used to dangle us having a baby in front of my face to get me to work harder like a carrot on a string. But how the hell are we supposed to get pregnant when we weren't having sex? I'm so grateful to God that I didn't have a child with this person. After I left, I went no contact. Only a few emails where he tried to manipulate me into seeing him or us talking on the phone, and I flat out refused. I wanted to document every single thing. I knew he'd behave if I could have proof. It was funny to see his little passive-aggressive, covert ways of insulting me wrapped into what seemed like kind words. What a douche canoe. I have never, ever been happier since I left. I am free, and I want to shout out from the top of the moon. I only woke up to narcissism after I left. Your channel was a part of me uncovering that. There is so much more to my story, but this is the gist. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you do here on your channel. I've needed closure for months, and even though I've written my ex 20 plus emails telling him how much he hurt me, I know he won't care. No. Why? Why are you still doing that? Because you're still trying to get garbage to love you. Garbage. Someone else's narcissistic garbage to love you. That's what you've been trying to do. And that's what you're still kind of trying to do. Because you put all your value into who wanted to sleep with you. For a friend who doesn't want to see you do better than she does. Doesn't want to see you be with a better guy than she does. I know he won't care. He probably wouldn't even read them. Sending this to you to read on your channel helps me get closure I've so been desperately needing. Thank you for sharing my story. Thanks for being such an awesome dude, sharing other stories as well as your own. It's important for us to get educated and stay the hell away from these evil, broken people. And laughter. You make me laugh out loud. And anyone who's been through this hell needs that. Thanks, Ollie. Sincerely, Jessica. Jessica, there's a reason why your self-esteem is so low, and that you put all your value into who wanted to sleep with you. And there's a reason why, you're trying to get someone else's narcissistic garbage to love you. You can't start at a lower bar than that, and that is never, ever, ever going to work. Women generally don't want to see their friends with a better man than they have. They don't. They don't. And you throw in this, there's nothing Christian, nothing anything about how this guy says he was and how you lived. And right to the end with the emails, you're still trying to get someone else's narcissistic garbage to love you. And it's never going to happen. So, I hope that helps. Thank you so much for your contribution and your story, Jessica. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comments section below. And if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to sponsor a video like this to someone who needs help and can't afford it, or you just want to make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance. Take care.